Pope Francis announced that the year 2015 will be dedicated to consecrated life as he met with the Union of Superiors General. During the session, the Superiors General and the Pope spoke about how religious congregations enrich diocesan life. He encouraged members to go out to frontiers, working first and foremost with people excluded from society. But he stressed the importance of dialogue with local communities to better adapt the Church's teachings into their ways of life. When it came to formation of religious members, the Pope said to avoid hypocrisy and clericalism, to develop a tender heart. Upon his return, he continued answering their questions, and near the end, he announced 2015 would be dedicated to them. He also thanked them for their faith and service.
Por favor, recen por mí, que necesito.
According to the most recent published data, the world has 793,709 religious, 8,061 less than the previous year. The number of women entering religious orders is much higher than that of males. Some 739,000 religious are women, and only 55,000 of them are men. The majority of these active life orders work in the fields of education and healthcare. This way, the spirituality and the activities of the religious reflect the richness of the Catholic Church.
The images that I use in order to explain consecrated life is a forest, a very complicated forest, with different flowers, with different plants, some of them freshly born and others that have a long life, an ecological system that needs to be cured. The service of our dicastery is really this, to take care of this forest. But what is really beautiful is how this Amazon forest gives breath to the whole world.
One of the most peculiar characteristics of consecrated life is that today it is characterized by being a frontier with new need. The world of drugs, for example, the homeless world, but also the world of education. Because with contemporary society, there are fractured families, and in a secularized society, the world of education has to be a priority.
At first glance, it might seem like religious life has changed a lot over the years because the challenges and activities that they have to face are very different from those of the past. But it doesn't change its overall contribution nor its mission in the Church.
There are challenges that society presents today, at times aggressively, but in reality, consecrated life has a great significance at the center of Christian life. So in a changing society, religious life has a great ability to be proposed as a way of life. It is very current. The challenges for consecrated life are very different because they depend on the region in the world in which we live. I believe in general that the challenge is to be faithful to the roots and traditions of Catholic Christianity and to be messengers of a gospel that is comprehensive in today's world.
The presence of religious in the church varies around the world. Europe is the continent in which religious vocations have decreased the most. There are 8,700 less compared to the previous year, although it also has the largest religious presence and has a total of 320,000 religious. The Americas rank second with 220,000 religious. Vocations have also dropped since 2009 in the Americas. In third place is Asia. There are more than 170,000 religious. It's the continent where the number of religious has jumped by the most, over 2,000. In Africa, there are a total of 71,700 religious living there, 1,940 more than in 2009. In the last place is Oceania. It's the continent with the least number, with only 10,878, which is 257 less than the previous year. Benedict XVI defines religious life as a bridge towards God. According to the Pope, this life is a testament to the love and the forgiveness that God has for man. They're bridges that stretch all over the world and serve as examples of how Christ brings people closer to God.
Tell us why here in the United States and in many countries in Western Europe, why vocations have decreased in many congregations.
The fact that religion today is maybe taken for granted. Maybe, we Catholics, we Christians, we've sort of become comfortable. And so I think that could be one of the reasons. Before, it was considered an honor to have a son or a daughter. Smaller families is another reason. Oftentimes, you had families of 6, 7, 8, 10, and so some were called to religious life, some were called to marriage, and so I think we have smaller families. Unfortunately, it's known where parents sometimes will discourage a religious vocation because they want a grandchild. But I think even if that's the case, I think it is such a sacred call that I think all of us need to respect the fact that if God has called a son or a daughter to marriage, to priesthood, to religious life, whatever that call is, that parent needs to help them to know that in fact that God does call and to help them to discern that particular call.
Benedict XVI received various superior generals of the main religious orders who have gathered in Rome to discuss the challenges of religious life in the West. The Pope said that despite the declining number of priests, the Church will never cease to have consecrated people because this life has its origin in God. Benedict XVI reminded that community life is one of the factors that young people look for when they approach the Church. That's why he asked them to pray, reflect, and be masters of discernment to avoid falling into the individualism, consumerism, and materialism. According to the Pope, these obstacles make it difficult to live together and lessens the appeal of the consecrated life. During the meeting, the Pope also spoke about religious people who are persecuted for defending God.
Omnes, hoc est enim meum, quod pro vobis tradetur. Sic est enim calis sanguinis mei, novi ed eternum testamento, qui pro vobis et pro multis effundetur in remissionem peccatorum, hoc facite in meam commemorationem.
In his latest message, Pope Francis asked Catholics to, quote, open our hearts to great ideals, to great things. He asked them to set aside May 11th to pray so that people devote their life to God. For more than 5 decades, the Church marks that particular date as the World Day of Prayer for Vocations. Pope Francis urged those that question their vocation not to be afraid. God follows the work of his hands with passion and skill in every phase of life, he said. He never abandons us. He has the fulfillment of his plan for us at heart, and yet he wishes to achieve it with our consent and cooperation.
Like the many immigrants who came before them, more than 50 people traveled by boat to Ellis Island in New York Harbor. They were not coming to a new land. Rather, they were journeying to learn about, remember, and honor the accomplishments of women religious in America. The exhibit, Women in Spirit, Catholic Sisters in America, has drawn thousands, according to Judy Giracheo, a curator at Ellis Island.
We've gotten a really wonderful reaction. The exhibit's been packed. I got an email from a colleague over the weekend, and he said that there were people waiting to get in the door. He said it looked like a New York City subway car.
On a Sunday Tuesday, which brought women religious, associates, and others to Ellis Island, the exhibit was not too crowded, so this made for comfortable viewing of this compelling collection. Upon entering the exhibit, visitors are drawn in by a beautifully produced video about women religious, which chronicles the journey of religious women from the frontier, ministering to Native Americans, to their work with immigrants from Ellis Island and beyond. It shows the sisters ministering through wars and epidemics, including the Civil War. It highlights their role in education through Catholic schools. It puts a spotlight on their work in healthcare, including the founding of the Mayo Clinic. And it shows them marching for civil rights and human rights and beyond. And it features how they lobby for social justice on Capitol Hill.
For people who were raised Catholic and who had relationships with Catholic sisters as they grew up, they're getting to see the historical context in which they operated, the larger story. And for those who really had no personal relationships with Catholic sisters, I think they're getting to see a story beyond the stereotype and the movie image.
Sister St. Joseph Judith O'Connell organized the trip. She said it was important for people to make the journey to Ellis Island and see the history of religious women.
I know that all the time and energy and thought that went into this really needed to be spread everywhere. But I especially wanted the sisters to have the benefit of seeing all that sisters had done to establish, to build, to develop this country.
And this committee has been charged with the task of producing an exhibit. The goal of the exhibit is to share the contributions of Catholic sisters to the history and culture of the United States. When people leave the exhibit, I hope they will have a better understanding of really the life and the contributions of these women. I hope that they will understand that these women have a spirituality and a vision that compelled them to serve others. And I hope that they will realize that they too have a spirituality and a vision. It doesn't belong to Catholic sisters. We have our own particular vision, our own particular way of serving, our own particular ministry. But I truly believe that every person is called to a vision. Everyone is called to serve others. Everyone is called to a global community, not just a local community. And I particularly hope that women have a vision of what we as women can do, that it's a world that Catholic sisters were very fortunate that they had the opportunity through education and other means to use their talents. And other women certainly have had opportunities, but I hope that they will understand that Catholic sisters support them and have always supported women in developing their capacities and having their own vision.
Two words that you used, obviously charism, which is very peculiar to religious life and religious communities, and we know that that word means gift. The other word is community, communio. How important is communio in religious life?
I think it's extremely important. You know, when you think of it, religious come together, I say, neither by choice in community nor by blood. So people that are living in a family, a young woman, a young man, choose each other. They feel that they are called to marry, and they form a family. Or sometimes friends will get together and say, "Why don't we live together? We can share, we can share the rent. We can study together." Whatever their purpose is, religious come together neither by choice nor by blood. What a phenomenal example for the world! Because in other words, I could be living in a community with someone that maybe would be the last person in the world that I would choose to live with. But my challenge is that I still need to love that person. I need to live in communion with them and to seek their good even over my own good. And I think that's a great witness in the world today on how neighborhoods, families, society, cultures, nations need to try to live.
Why are these new religious communities being formed, and what need are they serving?
Well, again, because of the changes in culture, I think the changes in society, new needs come up. So one very obvious group that I think of would be the Sisters of Light. Disrespect for life, I think, that is rampant, particularly all over the world, but I think of it in our own country, with the issues of abortion, with the issues of euthanasia. Today we consider people important because of what they do. We talk about the quality of life, but that's based on what they're able to do. So they were founded in order to promote a genuine understanding and respect for all life, something that I think that we're missing. And young women today, can truly relate with that, so they're flocking to this congregation because they see it's a genuine need in the church, it's a current need, and there's no problem with vocations there.
One of the things of Vatican II was to look at the signs of the times.
To be a Catholic then was very exciting. You just felt like you were part of this wave.
Spirituality in the gospel was connected then with social justice issues, and politics were a part of that.
I'm Sister Joanne Kirsch.
Hi, Sister.
And I really beg you to support this bill.
It depends on you guys.
I will read this, I will study it.
I'd say it depends on you gals.
Thank
and I
you.
will
God bless
listen. Your words mean a lot.
We are the risk takers in the church. We are down there with the people. We know what the needs are.
Stop the deportation.
We must expand our vision of justice toward all beings. There must be justice toward the planet.
Love cannot be silenced, it never has, it never will. Let justice roll like a river from the oceans to the hills. Rise up, sisters, rise up, and stand with your heads held high. We are faithful, loving, and wise, dancing along side by side, with the gospel vision to lead us, and holy fire in our eyes.
Why would somebody want to be a sister? It's hard to answer on anything but a personal level. I know why I would want to be a sister. It's because things will eventually fade. Things break. They don't fulfill. For a moment they fulfill, and then it's emptiness again. You get a new toy, And then, even as a sister, you get a new pair of shoes, and that's pretty exciting. But they get dirty and they wear, and all of this passes away. And I think for me, the reason why is because I'm living for eternity, and I can start that now.
It's really funny because when I'm outside of the convent, when I go on home visit or different things like that, they'll say, Sister Carrie Ann is so joyful. I just see the joy radiating from her face. And I'm not really doing anything special or, it just comes forth, and it's something that's really hard to explain to people. How do you gain it? How do you gain this joy? How do you gain this peace, And really it's sitting before our Lord and allowing Him to love you. So it's just something very simple.
How did I know about being called as a sister? I think I discovered that at first when I finally realized how God loves me unconditionally. And with that knowledge that God loves me no matter what, or because of who I am, or because of everything that I am, I just have this deepest desire to give it back to God. I discovered that life of being a sister is all about. I had this sense of peace and at the same time excitement to know more and further explore it and to further live it out. And for me, the call to religious life was a response of my own need to love God back. Jesus said, "It is not you who chose me, it was I who chose you."
I've been a nun for 14 years, and I've never been bored. I go to bed every night thinking, oh, where did this day go? I think I've been surprised at how much peace I've had. I can't explain it, and the last 7 months have been beautiful. When you think you're giving up everything, and He gives it back to you 100-fold in deeper ways, with friendship, or even the love with my family. It's deepened and grown. That was something that was hard. I thought, I'm going to give them up, and I'm not going to get to see them as much or talk to them as much. And He's returned it 100-fold. I think.
Our images of nuns were of women who sacrificed worldly pleasures to lead a different life, one mysterious to the rest of us.
I see that we are growing more and more involved with the world around us. We are all concerned that we stand clearly on the side of justice and peace and all that liberates.
Most women religious work in education and healthcare and a variety of social services. A smaller number devote themselves exclusively to prayer, but all have made the choice to forego what most of us want: marriage, children, and worldly comforts.
I think it's a quest for God, and it's a path for some people. It's not for everyone.
It's not easy. It's not easy because it isn't what most people do.
Today, when women can pursue almost any path, what is it that draws these women to follow a different path?
come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown in you and you in me? Will you leave your
most adorable incarnate Word, the object of adoration and love in the Blessed Sacrament, I, Sister Melody Mobley, in your presence, Sister Lauren Beck, our Superior General, vow to God poverty, chastity, and obedience in accord with the constitutions of the Sisters of the Incarnate Word and Blessed Sacrament of Houston, Texas, for 1 year. I beseech God's goodness and mercy to give me the grace of faithfulness. Amen.
Amen.
One sister. One sister. One sister. One sister.
One sister. One sister can change the world.
Will you let the blinded see if I but call your name? Will you set the prisoners free and never be the same? Will you kiss the leper clean and do such as this unseen?